happening politically in the country as well as issues to do with human rights. Let's have your reaction to what's been presented to Parliament so far.
Thank you so much. I think it's a step in the right direction. This access to information issue began 2002, which is about 20 years ago, when it was called Zambia Information Bill, and it was not successful into Parliament. But however, the intent of that presentation was good enough. I think some of the real objectives of 2002 bill was to establish a public information commission that would help and define the functions to ensure that journalists and other stakeholders, the citizens, would access the information, and of course to set standards and rules that would help the citizens, as well as to promote transparency and accountability. Now the question would be, what has changed to the current bill? There is a huge difference. I think in the first place, I would like to give a recommendation to the current government for adjustment that I've made to the bill. Probably that's why sometimes in life you need to have patience. What they have added to the current bill is quite exciting. As we have already said, it will designate the Human Rights Commission as an institution that will give an oversight. That institution will ensure that our rights that are in the Zambian Constitution are protected. We have an avenue where you can have your rights protected if they are hindered upon by other individuals.
As a matter of reminder, for those that are following it and have been hearing access to information bill over the years, and they may not see what this bill is all about. You mentioned that the objective, one of the key objectives, is to ensure that the journalists, the media, have access to information. What's the difference? What difference will this bring? Because the media, from a layman's understanding, are having access to the information, and that's why we have news, isn't it?
Of course, you have news through your personal investigative skill that you have attained, but this bill will enable you to have information relevant to issues that one raise and communicate to individuals. The purpose of transmission of information, ladies and gentlemen, is to educate, entertain, and inform. But what is it that you are trying to educate? It must be relevant to issues of accountability of your government. We know democracy is about a government elected by the people, and they have a right to hear what they are doing. And it's through the journalists that to give that information in a packaged manner. But this bill, what is key is that it has introduced an element of United Nations Conventions Against Corruption, meaning it will give a procedure through the Human Rights Commission where there are issues of investigations and some people feel they are tampered with. It will give those procedures and request how to get this information. So this is quite recommendable to the current government. Then the other aspect that has come out, it also refers to African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which is being domesticated. By virtue of mentioning these two conventions, it means Zambia is trying to domesticate these documents so that when we follow and exhaust our procedures, we are able to take it further to the next level. Unlike the situation that we've had, we have seen politicians trying to go dive to these international institutions without exhausting the domestic processes. But this bill is going to provide that procedure.
And for those in politics, how does this enhance democracy in the country?
Of course, it will give guidance. We have seen divisions among politicians, those that feel they are hindered in their progress to participation, and they want to jump the gun to go to international organizations. But because of this legal framework that is going to come on board, they will be able to follow these procedures and there will be no mercy in the country. And it's quite recommendable for the current government.
Debates have gone into prior to the presentation of this bill into the National Assembly. The big question we would also want to find out is, do you think Zambia is ready for this law?
Of course, indeed. You can look at the struggle, the process that we have gone through. As I said, this process began in 2002, and the Zambians are not going to sleep. They have been following up all these issues, and today it has been brought to flow of the parliament, meaning the Zambians are ready to receive this law. I will give you an example. In the region, Malawi has got an access to information bill which was passed in 2017. We have Kenya in 2016. We have Ethiopia in 2008, Uganda in 2011. As we started this journey in 2002, meaning now it's coming to be actualized. We are getting there, meaning contentious issues have been resolved, and we are ready to receive this and help our country in terms of transparency and accountability.
What are the
for our
pros and
leaders?
cons of this bill?
Of course, in terms of advantages, it will promote governance issues. There will be full respect of human rights, especially to be anchored in the Human Rights Commission. It will also give journalists access to information when they're investigating issues. The information that they will need will be easy to access, unlike it was, where some information will be not be accessed. But the disadvantages is that despite this access to information, to every law there is an exception. Not every information can be accessed. Some information is sensitive. It's national security type of information cannot just be released anyhow. So we must have that in our mind, despite this bill, but we cannot just get every piece of information that we need. Some information is national security. I think that should be at the back of our mind.
The countries that you mentioned that already have this kind of a bill, journalistically speaking, and following up the happenings in there, politically as well as media-wise, you want to think twice. Could we say that Zambia should be wary of some of these happenings?
You see, Zambia shouldn't worry. A war is not won in a day. There is a process. In our case, there was no political will from successive governments that have been there. This government has taken brevity to bring it to the floor of parliament. And indeed, they have even added the new things that were not there. Other countries have done it, but what matters again is implementation. It's one thing to have a law, it's another whether you can implement it. Zambia has grown in terms of political dispensation, and once we have the legal framework, it's possible that we can follow these laws that will guide us in terms of aspirations.
The people that have been crying to have this bill presented to Parliament and actualized are mainly from the media fraternity as well as from the political circles. How then would you want them to behave when this bill is put in place?
Of course, there will be pros and cons, rules and regulations. As I said, it will promote governance issues, rule of law. Rule of law means individuals, institutions should operate within the governance structures. For instance, if you talk about politicians, there are rules of how you participate in the elections. We have the electoral code of conduct done by Electoral Commission of Zambia. That also be strengthened, especially that we have this now information access bill once turns into law. So in that way, I think we are moving in the right direction.
What are some of the issues that you would like to sensitize them, people that are not yet aware of how this should be, put into place, especially for the journalists that are supposed to go out there? Others will just feel, well, since we have the access to information bill, now it's time to go all out. You mentioned there are certain components that they do not need to get into because of the sensitivities of the information that's in there.
What I would advise and encourage journalists is that let them read this content of the bill. Let them read about different conventions and how they are domesticated. If a convention is not domesticated, it has no effect on the Zambian territory. And that's why this government has brought in the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Because one of the objectives is fighting corruption. How do they fight corruption to utmost? Sometimes some of these targeted individuals, they want to go to international organizations thinking they will escape the process. Now, if it is effected through this bill, everything will have a procedure, and the Zambian government, in terms of protection of properties for the citizens, will be safe. So there must be high level of awareness at every conference, at every seminar. This bill must be discussed.
It's reached National Assembly. What are some of the processes that are expected before finally releasing?
Of course, once it goes to the National Assembly, we have the usual 3 readings. The first reading, where it is scrutinized straight before Parliament on the floor, where if they want to add anything, remove and add, it will be done. If it passes that stage, it will go to second reading. Again, that is another further scrutiny. Probably even call other stakeholders who had no chance to contribute to the bill, and they will be able to contribute. And finally, to go to the third reading. If it passes the third reading, it goes to the president, who will give an assent to it, and finally it becomes a law. And once it becomes a law, whatever we do, we must be mindful of the clauses that are within this law, and what do they say, and how should we get information. As I said, some information are security in nature, national security. You can't just access it because it can be abused by certain individuals. But this bill is in the right direction, at least a step in the right direction.
The parliamentarians that are going to be part of this process that you've mentioned, the third, second, and obviously final stages, what mind should they go into it with?
They should not just vote yes and no. They should learn to read between the lines. What is the impact of each clause on the Zambian people? They are accountable to the Zambian people. It is one thing to make a law, but it's another whether that law is good enough for the generation that we are saving, for the masses that we are saving. So the parliamentarians have got that law to ensure that the clauses that are within the bill do not affect the citizens, do not invalidate other laws that we have already in the country. Of course, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So any law that may invalidate the Constitution becomes null and void. So the clauses, especially on the Bill of Rights, must be protected. Should not divert from the Zambian Constitution.
From this point on until it is finally put into law, the Access to Information Bill once again comes back to our lips, this time around with good news that's been presented to the National Assembly, and we'll be calling upon such minds as Joseph Selisho to help us understand at each point that the Access to Information Bill will get. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
And all the best in that PhD.
Thank you.
All right, so Joseph Selisho is from the University of Zambia. He is a political scientist, a candidate, PhD candidate for international relations as well. And stay with us on the update.